State alchemists don't say I love you. They say, if I go off the straight and narrow, I want you to be the one who shoots me. And I think that's beautiful.
Podcasts, the 21st Century Radio Show. Two friends were hit by quarantine and found themselves bored in 2020. But they committed the one taboo among content creators. Never start a podcast because you're bored. Will they go mad? Give up? Or finish watching each other's favourite shows? Whatever happens, listen with care. For what could equal the horror of spoilers?
Welcome to the Sin and Violence Podcast. I'm Ginger.
And I'm Kara.
And in this show, we'll be discussing and doing somewhat daily recaps of the series Life on Mars and the anime Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
And today's episode is, as we both decided exactly at the same time.
It was really weird, but yes, we did decide at the exact same time.
The episode is titled, My Favorite Character is a Murderer? ?
The question mark is very important.
It's very important because the answer might be yes, the answer might be no. It depends on which thing we're talking about. But it is inherent to the plots of both of our viewings.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
very.
yes. And I just realized that next episode is the last time we'll be saying Life on Mars in the intro.
Yeah, I'm a little... It's like, I have a question, though. Is this franchise known as, like, the Life on Mars universe? Or is it, like, would you call Ashes to Ashes Life on Mars? Or is it, like, two distinct things? Or...
There's really... Okay. The problem, and I don't consider it a problem because it came before something like the MCU. Actually, maybe it came during it. I don't know. What year is it?
Well, it started in 2006, and Iron Man was 2008, if I recall correctly.
Okay, so it is
but then the Hulk was first, but I think Hulk came out in 2007, so I think Life on Mars was definitively first.
Life on Mars...
Why do I know this?
Because it's important. Life on Mars is pre-cinematic universes, and so there's really no name for it. I have heard, like there's sort of a fan name that's occasionally used, and I use it in hashtags sometimes, and it's Ashes on Mars, which makes no sense, but it's an attempt to get both titles in there. It's It's not official. Mm-hmm. It's basically, it is those Gene Hunt shows. I don't know. It's but there is no official overarching title for it. So it's a different title. I have no desire to change anything else, though, because our logo is magnificent. And...
the logo is flawless, so I'm not changing it.
The logo, I don't care if the Ashes to Ashes logo is very different. The Sin and Violence logo stays.
Isn't Ashes to Ashes, it has, like, the horizontal bar effect going on, right?
Yeah, it's got that sort of Venetian blind look going, so...
I can integrate that into the logo. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional graphic designer.
If you're feeling it, go for it. But
I'll do that, and then we'll see if it looks hideous or if it actually works, and then we'll go from there. So, listeners, when we start watching Ashes to Ashes, you'll know.
Right. So, now that we have made that decision in front of God and everybody, it is time to move on to the violence portion of the evening. That is Life on Mars, Season 2, Episode 7, written by Mark Grieg, who also writes for Ashes to Ashes.
Okay.
He also does 3 episodes. I look up the writers, because I'm invested in who the writers are and what they do. So, yeah, he has done tons of police procedurals before and since, which... When you look at the episode, you can kind of see it. This is very much the type of story of someone who does cop show episodes a lot. He's done Taggart, he's done The Bill, then again, everyone's done The Bill. Ransom.
You're listing off franchises I've never heard of.
They are British and Scottish police procedurals.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. And The Bill is basically, if you are in British television in any way, shape, or form, you will take part in one episode of The Bill.
Okay.
That's literally all I know about that show, is that everyone's worked on it once. So, this is a boxing story, and you know how boxing stories go. A boxer gets hurt, and the coach totally didn't do it.
I don't know why I find that so funny.
sad and true. I mean, I was thinking about the Twilight Zone episode about boxers and everything I've seen where there are boxers, and it's like, yes, unfortunately, it's the same story every time.
Yeah.
I don't think that's uncreativity. I think that's just really sad. So anyway, we have a boxer, David Mackey. He is assaulted by the owner of this boxing gym, Terry Haslam. Terry is taken to court. Gene Hunt is called as an eyewitness, and Gene gets up on that stand and says, I watched the dude push the other dude down the stairs. If you have any justice in your soul, he's like full paladin at this point. If you have any justice in your soul, you will put this man behind bars. And the dude's found not guilty. Gene is very pissed. Terry thinks this is the best thing in the world, and he's mocking Gene for it. So Gene and Sam go to the Railway Arms. Gene gets super duper drunk, and Sam is the good designated driver, but Gene does not lead him to his house. He leads him to Terry Haslam's house. And Gene just stumbles out of the car and makes a scene, puts a brick through the window, takes his gun out, and then wanders off into the night. Sam goes back home. He has a bunch of weird dreams about a phone that he keeps ringing and there's no one on the other line. And then the phone really does ring when he wakes up in the morning, and it's Gene, who says, I appear to have killed a man.
Which is exactly what you want to hear first thing in the morning.
He sounds very sort of, So Sam goes over to Terry Haslam's place, and it sure does look like he's killed a dude. Gene is there. There is blood all over his shirt. The dude is dead in the corner, and there's blood all over the wall. Gene's gun is under the bed, and it has recently been fired. This is Ace Attorney level stuff.
This is also, in my mind, I'm also thinking of Maria Ross's situation in FMA right now.
Oh,
just realized
yeah.
that.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Not gonna try that into this, though. Continue, please.
So, Gene is arrested, and Gene is like, okay, Sam, you picky piece of shit, now is the time where I want you to do all your picky piece of shit stuff. Get me out of here. This is why you're here. Enter DCI Frank Morgan, taking over from Gene while Gene is put away. Frank Morgan is played by Ralph Brown, who's been in tons of acclaimed roles, but I think of him as the drug dealer from Withnail and I, and Del the Super Roadie from Wayne's World 2, which are basically
I thought he was... I didn't realize that was the exact same actor. I thought for some reason you were just referring to that scene. I didn't realize that was, like, literally the same actor.
It is literally the same dude. Danny and Del are essentially the same character, which I think may have been on purpose. But he is nothing like that here. He is from Woo-Hide, and he's like Giga Sam. He's like, he has the tape recorder. He has the best suit in Christendom. He has everything in little baggies. He is like, he is everything Sam wants to be in this time period and more. Except he is actually actively sexist toward Annie. Where we've talked about in past episodes, Gene is like, make me tea, bring me biscuits, and then go out and bring in this criminal.
And then go out and fight crime, Cartwright.
And then go out and fight crime. Exactly. Morgan is like, oh, Annie, wow, this is a rough time for you, huh? Why don't you go and teach kids how to cross the street safely? It's like, that's great. And she's super happy about that. It's a quote-unquote hearts and minds thing that he's putting her on. So Morgan and Sam interview Gene, who maintains his innocence and says that Mackie was acting weird in court. So Sam follows that up, goes to the boxing gym. Mackie admits that he stole money from Terry, and that is what prompted the attack on him, the assault. Gene is getting tired of waiting for Sam to just solve the case overnight and let him go home, so he hires a very drunk lawyer, who is played by the guy who played Mr. Humphreys in the one-episode reboot of Are You Being Served? He is super drunk and super crazy, but it works. And this dude is a lawyer like Suki from the wife swapping episode was a wife. So basically on brand for Gene. So Gene gets to go home. Morgan sends Ray and Chris to stake out at his place, but Gene gets right past them. Sam goes
you know what? Fine. I just crack up though at Ray and Chris. Like, how are you here? I think I actually said that to you when we were watching. I'm like, how are they still here?
Bless their hearts. Sam goes to the gym, and he speaks to the trainer there, Wilkes, who I just enjoy putting in where we've seen them before because it's fun when you realize.
No, it is fun, especially because as we've said, there's only 12 British actors, and so if you've seen, they've been in every, you always have them in some other role or some other thing.
So Wilkes, Doctor Who fans will recognize as the priest from Tooth and Claw, the werewolf episode.
Oh.
So Sam goes to interview him about the money that Mackie stole. And Wilkes says, no, he didn't take money. He took an envelope. And also, while we're here, your boss is super into boxing, and he and Terry have known each other for a while. That evening, Annie does her road safety class with the kiddies. She is dressed up as Tufty the Squirrel, who, for Americans, Tufty is actually he is a cute little road safety mascot who's been around for decades. And they have this big old Tufty costume. It's cute, but it's also kind of annoying because she could be out there helping the boys.
She could be out there fighting crime.
Out there fighting crime instead of in here being a squirrel. But it is a pretty great costume. Then Wilkes, who we just spoke to, is found murdered sitting in the boxing ring up on the ropes. Jean was seen just before the murder, so when the cops arrive and they hear this, everyone's, confused and angry. Everyone's kind of not sure what to think, especially Ray. Ray and Chris are both mad at Sam because he seems to be getting along with Morgan, who is our de facto bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Jean shows up in Sam's flat. Sam gets home and it's like, hey. So he spends the night there. Jean admits that he used to take backhanders from Terry. Before the trial, Terry tried to bribe him again to not testify against him, to not say, yeah, I saw you push this dude down the stairs. Jean had an attack of conscience. Jean insists, I am not guilty. Sam knows. Sam basically says straight out, I know that you're not guilty. I believe you. I'll come back to that scene, but I really love those moments. So they have to sneak into the station to sort of look at what Morgan has on the case so far. Jean is dead set on going in there, but he can't because he's wanted and on the run. So they borrow the squirrel costume, which is absolutely wonderful. Very angry Jean walking around in a squirrel costume and getting called a rat by Morgan later. They find a few records. As an aside, Jean also finds that all his trophies and lads stuff have been put in boxes by Morgan. He is very displeased about this. They then go to the crime scene. Sam is doing his picky thing. Jean is obsessed with this remote control. Jean is just like, vision of the future, click, 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 and Sam's like, okay, good for you, buddy. And Sam finds that Terry died on top of a heating vent, and the way the heating is programmed, it will definitely have offset the time of death because it will have kept the body a little warmer. So, the time of death...
Yes, programming of your thermostat. Something I definitely utilize, because I'm lazy.
But yeah, so basically that will have fudged the time of death, so now all they really need is an alibi. So Jean finally remembers why he is so obsessed with this remote control. He's seen it on display in a shop window during his blackout time between leaving the pub and calling Sam. So they go to the TV shop where the remote is, and Jean is like, yes, I absolutely peed here. And and this little old lady steps out like, oh, it's you. You stupid idiot. You fell asleep on my doorstep. Oh, well, thank God your friend came along and piled you into the car and drove you away. And Jean's like, I'm sorry, who did what? And they
took 2 bottles of bleach to clean up your pee.
Two. But in the midst of all that, they do have Jean's alibi, which is that someone matching David Mackey's description picked Jean up off the doorstep, piled him into the car, and dropped him at the scene of the murder. So Jean now has an alibi, hooray. They go and confront Mackey. So basically Mackey had motive. He had chosen not to throw his last fight that incurred the assault. As they are trying to get to a point where they can prove this, Jean and Sam go to the gym. They evade Ray and Chris with Jean's super good disguise, which is a pair of sunglasses. And then an assist from another criminal friend who pretends to be him, but looks nothing like him. They confront Mackey at the gym. Mackey confesses in front of everybody and is taken in. Jean returns to his duties. He has a very harsh talk with the crowd where he's like, well, I expect you to be loyal to me because I am your DCI. I also expect you to investigate crimes if they seem to be real, so you were doing your job. However, I am kind of pissed that you think I could murder a man, but since we all know that I didn't, let's all have a party and get super drunk. So they all have a party and get super drunk. Chris dances badly and goes and pukes in the hall. Sam and Annie have a very cute moment in the hall where they almost kiss, and then Morgan is a cockblock. Again, we'll come back to that.
The latest into the many editions of cockblocks in Sam's life.
So Annie goes on her way with a sort of hee oh well, and Sam and Morgan talk briefly. Morgan's like, well, we almost got him this time. That's a shame. We'll get him next time, and then Sam will get you home. And that is where it ends.
That's where it ends.
That is where it leaves off with Sam being exceedingly confused about the whole thing.
It's very interesting to note, just because this is the last episode before the finale, that you're going over all this, and while I understand there's probably obviously things that'll be in the next episode, that's the last episode that'll wrap things up. It's also kind of funny where it reminds me of how some series will do that thing where they build up to the finale, and then the episode before the finale they kind of do something totally random and unrelated to the finale to kind of like give you a break before you go into the finale.
This is England. We don't have time.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I watch this episode and I look at it like, okay, I understand that the character, the DCI guy, who in my mind I'm only thinking of as the Whitnell and I guy, sorry.
That's how I think of him. I apologize, Mr. Wonderful Actor Man. I have probably seen you in other things that you were magnificent in, but Danny!
But like, I only saw him as like, he was a character in the episode, but this whole time I'm going, no, he's definitely some sort of, he is related to Sam in Como Ward, like, I understood that whole time, because I was like, there has to be some, there is obviously some connection here, and then obviously at the end of the episode, we're reminded of that, but at the same time, the way the episode played out, it almost felt like it had nothing to do with the finale, because it's an entirely it's a Gene Hunt-centric episode in its way.
Right.
So that's kind of how I'm kind of, it's of two worlds, where it feels like a Gene episode, but and I think also it does that thing where it shows you how Gene and Sam's friendship and working relationship has developed since we first met them. And it's almost like it's like a reminder of, this is how far we've come since the beginning, lads, and where our two lads are. And I'm just going to keep using the word lads, because I like that word.
I mean, they are lads.
They are lads. Lads.
And,
So in that way, it's almost like a quote unquote like a recap in that way. It's a reminder, because we don't actively necessarily get upwardly confronted with this whole thing of, this is how Sam and Gene have become friends, because obviously if you do that, it ruins the tone of the episode, but it is a reminder of that, and also it is a reminder where I'm like, oh, I only have one more episode left of these guys. Oh.
Yeah. I like the setup for this because it sort of shows the friendship from both sides, because they have been very at odds, both in their technique and they've had a lot of good moments where they sort of talk things out, and it's like, oh, we realize that Sam is like this because of certain things. We realize that Gene is like this because of certain things. Mm-hmm. And this is the episode where, like, Gene acknowledges Sam's picky by-the-bookness as being essential and says, that is what I want from you. In fact, now that it's on me, I realize how important it is. Mm-hmm. Like, now that my life depends on it, suddenly I'm realizing just how much sense it makes. And then Sam's gut feelings also start to come into play, where he's been sort of becoming more used to the gut. Like, is this a bad guy? Is this a good guy? Which has been tested over and over. But when he's sitting in his room talking with Gene, mm-hmm. and Gene says, I didn't do it, and Sam's like, yeah, I believe you. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't even have all the evidence yet, but Sam trusts his gut. He's like, I know you, I've worked with you, and you're a son of a bitch, but I do not believe you are a murderer.
Right.
It's both of them really embracing each other's methods, mm-hmm. in a very real way that benefits the other.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting just because it shows you, again, how they've come around. Because you mentioned previously there's an episode where Gene says, and we don't have any evidence, and I can't believe I just said that. Whereas this time around, Jean is like, evidence, 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 evidence.
Yeah, I mean, Jean is clearly annoyed that it's taking more than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But he also acknowledges, he's like, look, Sam, this is your time. This is your golden moment. This is, if you wanted to be a picky, annoying, note-keeping asshole, this is where you can do it, baby. You know?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. I also think it's funny, now that I think about this more, it is pretty funny to me that this is actually the most Ace Attorney-like episode.
It is!
Because, for our listeners who don't know, which is crazy, the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games, it's a video game series where you're a lawyer. No, come back. And you play as a lawyer, and it's like a point-and-click adventure game, or like a text game. What are those called?
Visual novel.
Visual novel. Thank you. You know, and you progress, and it's surprisingly, the cases are very complicated and all this stuff, but then, like, when you get into, like, case 2 or 3 of the murder, or even, like, right away, you are in these situations where you're a defense attorney, and the people you're defending usually look like they obviously did it. And in some cases, it is incredibly obviously appearing that they did it. To the point where you're like, how on earth am I going to disprove this one? But you end up doing it through being methodical and finding the evidence and et cetera, et cetera. So that's actually what this reminded me of the most was, you know...
It really is very much... When I looked back at it, I'm like, he's on the scene, the blood is on his shirt, the man is lying there dead, his gun is under the bed, last night he was making a scene, and clearly he has motive and was drunk and out in front of the house acting kind of murderous. And so it's like, it really is one of those cases where all you have to go on is your gut going, I've talked to this person and they're insisting they didn't do it, and at least for now, I believe them.
Yeah, and also, like, the only thing that was missing was the fact that because the time of death was determined by the temperature of the body, which, the only thing missing was that instead of how Sam gets a bone and they're like, oh, he was on a heating vent, meaning the time of death was altered, it would have been the time of that would have actually been like, and this actually proves he's more of a murderer. But the episode's only an hour long, so they can't be doing that.
Yeah, Ace Attorney cases are like several stages and take a few hours to play, but it's like, it really was set up like that. It's such a good episode. We've seen them do, in the opening sequence, they do the double punch, to close out, that actually is from an episode. We see plenty of moments, and even in the first episode, even in the very first episode when they're interviewing the little old lady and she gives them that last piece of evidence, and they do the A-team leap over the desk, and so... We have absolutely seen plenty of moments where they are simpatico, they're drift compatible, basically, but this is where it is the entire episode. It's like, okay, locked in, this is how it is, and I love seeing them come to this point, and it's like, yep, right when we have one episode left.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I do have a few just random little funs on this episode. So... I love the use of names in Life on Mars, and this will continue in Ashes to Ashes, because, same writers. Where, before we had a bad guy who was named after the bad guy from High Noon, which is Gene's favorite movie. This time we have Frank Morgan, which is the name of the actor who played the Wizard of Oz. And normally I would shrug that off, because... Frank Morgan is not an uncommon name, but one, we have sort of this otherworld traveling thing, and two, and this is a retrospect thing. It was a retrospect thing for me. Gene will sometimes insult Sam by calling him female names like Gladys and stuff like that, but his chosen female name that he keeps going back to is Dorothy. That I don't think I don't think that's a Gene intentional thing, but I do think it's a writer intentional thing.
Yeah, and I actually think it would be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see after next episode how that ends up looking in retrospect, totally, to me, as someone who has not known the end of the series. And because here's the thing is that Sam knows he's in a coma. It isn't like Sam doesn't know he's in a coma. You know what I mean? Like, when you first watch The Wizard of Oz, you are like, oh, this is actually happening. But and at the end we learn, oh no, it's a dream. But then in Life on Mars, that's not the case. Like we know that Sam is in a coma. So I'm actually very curious to see how that ends up playing out. And I am still holding on to my purgatory theory, which, if anything, was, I do have an intense theory. The other night I was trying to fall asleep and I had a thought and I bolted up, and it was only like 12:30. It wasn't like super late. But that's 1:30 for you. And I was texting you like, oh my god, I just had a thought about this episode that we just watched. And I'm rambling on for like 10 minutes about my theory. And the whole thing is, I know that you can't say anything to me in response, but I was like, please validate me, even though I know you can't.
What I can say is that your theory does come from an intelligent place.
Okay, thank you.
Don't
say any more. Do not ruin this for me.
Right now is, honestly, I will say, of all the potential places in this watch, like the beginning, the bitter ends, last episode of Ashes, right now, literally the last episode of Mars and the first episode of Ashes, this is the place where I just literally have to put a piece of duct tape over my mouth.
Cool. That's exciting for Ashes to Ashes, because I was figuring, how is Ashes to Ashes going to continue the mystery of life on Mars? However, I also remember you saying in your one article that you wrote that, Sam and the character Alex are in different places because Alex, I think you said, knows what's up and Sam doesn't necessarily, and so that obviously means, because obviously you couldn't continue the mystery again because the audience already knows the mystery. So yeah, I'm just interested. I'm curious. I'm really excited. I'm very pumped. I know you're dying right now, but I am very
absolutely
pumped.
I am absolutely dying because, oh god, we are really, I'm usually like, let's space out our watches. We are going to have to watch and record the last Mars, watch and record the first Ashes as quickly as possible so I don't fucking die.
Okay, well, it's a weekend. It's perfect time to do that. I'm just saying. Spoilers for what time we record, listeners. We watch and record whenever, but right now is a weekend, so perfect opportunity to do it all.
Yeah, because, it's... And what's fun is I watched every episode of this real time.
Oh my god, you're reminding me of like listening to kids talk about Doctor Who, and people I watched Series 9 back to back to back, and I'm like, you know how agonizing it was to watch it weekly back in the day?
I watched every episode of Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes like, I would say, BBC America was kind of hinky about when and how they showed it. I discovered it off of BBC America when they were showing some Life on Mars. And it's like, this dude just got hit by a car and woke up in the 70s. I should see more of this. But yeah, one thing I will say is I am super glad that we have the option of, we can choose just how quickly to carry on.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't want to... Actually, you know what? This could be our tangent of the week, I guess, is the whole idea of the binge watch model versus the weekly model. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is, honest to God, I like the weekly model so much. I love having for me, it's stuff like, I like having something to look forward to. It's something that's entertainment that I can count on. I like time and consistency and plans. This is also a factor of my life in general, but... I like the idea that you're like, okay, on Saturday night, I will be watching Life on Mars. Like, that's great. I have an episode. And even though the suspense and things can kill you, I also feel like it sustains you, for that week. And I again, like, the last thing I watched weekly was Doctor Who, back in, especially 2014 to 2017. Like, that was my lifeblood of that time. And I loved it. I loved it so much. Because it was like something to watch weekly, it was something that I could enjoy over this long week in between episodes, and there was the questions and the mysteries and the things you found were funny that you could enjoy again, and like, I think that's so enjoyable, whereas like binge watching I've realized I have not loved a show that I have been able to, that I have binge watched, as in, I watched it all in like 2 days.
Right.
And I mean, that's not the same for everybody, but for instance, like, I watched Stranger Things in about the span of like 2 days, and I liked it, But I also feel like it would have left more impact on me had I had to watch it weekly, you know?
Yeah.
That's maybe just me, but I mean, like I've mentioned before to you, because you wrote a piece about bringing back serials.
Mm-hmm.
When Disney put out The Mandalorian, that was the smartest thing they could have possibly done.
Very much so.
Do it weekly.
Yep.
Duh. You keep up your brand momentum for that long, and you get people interested for that long. But it also meant that it was part of the cultural zeitgeist for so much longer.
And that's, I remember, like, with this, and again with Doctor Who, there's that week of discussion, and with Mars and with Ashes, and also, these came out, like, 10 plus years ago, where there was a Monastic Productions Twitter account, which was Matt and Ashley's production company, but there wasn't that concept back then of social media branding for an individual show.
Right.
Like, nowadays, like, you know, working with Crunchyroll, I have run Twitter accounts for specific anime series of a season. Like, I would be sitting here and two of the ones I did were like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord and Island. And so you would have daily brand engagement, which is fun. And unfortunately, in this era, it's kind of necessary. But that wasn't the case. So basically, the episode came out, be it, this Doctor Who is much more recent, so that's not the case. But, you know, episodes came out, be they Life on Mars, Ashes to Ashes, crank all the way back to, say, I don't know, Twin Peaks. And, you know, the first appointment TV, for better or for worse. And they showed you the episode, and then they went away. You know, it was like, they just handed it to you and left. And they were like, all right, we'll see you in a week. You make of that what you will. And
right. But then that's when you go online and you go. The thing about brand accounts, though, is that brand accounts aren't going to get too crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna, like, they might remind you, they might show you some clips, they'll give you the next time preview, but they're not going to get crazy, whereas when you're in the fan corners, where if you're on forums or message boards, or if you're on your live journal community, or whatever, you know, that is where you have the fan crazy discussion. And so while I think that we both of us having marketing in our blood, basically. We both understand the very importance of a brand presence and all that kind of stuff, an official presence, but you know, the fan communities are where this all kind of goes down. So I'm thinking, like, for instance, like Doctor Who or Ashes to Ashes, Life on Mars, all rely, there's a mystery. There's a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
You can't say that about all television, obviously. But think about, for instance, Black Mirror, a series I don't know anything much about. I don't really care to know much about it. It's just not my jam. However, I do know that it's a very thought-provoking, mysterious kind of thing.
Yep.
That would be killer if they released it weekly, so that people discussed things more, but they just dump it all out at once.
Yeah,
and it comes and goes very quickly.
It used to be in little 3-episode seasons on, I don't remember if it was BBC or
Netflix,
ITV.
right?
No, it didn't start on Netflix.
Oh, wait.
It started
Black
on
Mirror?
Black Mirror started on broadcast television. In England, yeah, it was.
In England.
In England, yeah, it was not. It was not.
3 episodes is not a season. Just saying. Fight me, nerds.
Well, it was more like they would release 3 movies within spitting distance of each other.
Oh, it's like the Sherlock format, where they're like hour and a half. 2-hour episodes. Fine. So you're releasing like mini movies then.
Yeah, and they were all. I mean, it's an anthology show like Twilight Zone. So, but they would release them, you know, a week and a week and a week, and then when it went to Netflix, they did the dumps, and it's like I really do kind of miss, because I do like Black Mirror. I also haven't finished. I also have not finished the most recent season. The last one I watched with just a burning desire in my heart to get there and experience it was Bandersnatch, which was the interactive one, so of course I loved it. And I loved watching people watch it. But no, it was much more interesting when there was the drip feed, essentially, of... Yeah. And, I mean, not all shows are like that. There are some shows that are just like, but I do think that really worked towards both Mars and Ashes, because I remember, because I was part of... There were 2 forums...
Back in the day, kids, we didn't have social media or SOCMED.
For all I know, they might still be around, but there was the Railway Arms, and then there was the one that was named after the watering hole in Ashes, which is Luigi's. And So you had the Railway Arms, you had Luigi's. I kind of bopped around both, and there was between the episodes there was all the wild mass guessing, and it was fun. It was so fun.
It was fun, and I just kind of miss when we had fun with our fandoms, you know?
Yeah, that's why...
I think the binge model has really hampered that. I think it's extremely hampered that.
Yeah, that's why I'm so enjoying watching this, both this and Brotherhood, the way we are, because... I mean, we're essentially manufacturing it, but we are doing it, where we're saying we're going to watch X amount, then we're going to meet up and we're going to chat. And it's what I miss of fandom and what I love and what I live for. And I think actually this is the most fun I've had rewatching Life on Mars in quite a while. No offense to my other friends, but the way we're doing it is
I'm going to take this. This is a victory. Marking this down in my victory notebook.
No,
I am the fun person to watch Life on Mars with.
No offense to my other friend, my many other friends that I have shown this to, but we would do like 2-3 episodes a day in a mix with other things because they didn't want to wait, and I understand. But I love the stop and discuss, and
well, it's also funny because like we both have a lot of other things going on right now.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing, what we're doing is structurally we have to set aside 2 hours per day to do what we're doing, and so there's a lot. That's a commitment that the two of us have to carve into our schedules, because despite our intro saying that we're bored and need something to do, we're actually not.
we're mentally bored. We're not schedule bored, you know.
Exactly. Also, I think this is mostly because we were both saying for a while that we needed to watch each other's series, and so this is an opportunity to do it. Like, okay, fine. Like, I'm at home, and I normally am working in an office, so I'm at home. Great, perfect. So this is why we ended up doing what we're doing right now. But yeah, we're both like, this is a time commitment, and so there are times when we've watched FMA, for instance, and I've been like, oh, I just want to watch one more episode. But then it's like, nope, we gotta stop it, just keep it to what it is, and stop and let it digest, and then we'll enjoy the next episode when we get to it.
Exactly. So, speaking of Fullmetal Alchemist, as I'm looking at our time bar here...
This is going to be a doozy of an episode, I'm just saying.
That's okay. Let us continue to the light frivolity of this week's Fullmetal Alchemist episodes.
Yeah, I was telling Kara before we watched these, I was like, by the way, these are going to be kind of heavy.
Yeah, just a bit.
So I will, especially episode 30, I will do my best to be serious about these things.
Sure.
But again, we're getting lots more backstory, a lot more information, and a lot more pieces of the puzzle. And because of that, I'm going to give long summaries, which I don't think I've quite done before these episodes. I'm also going to do something and read the summary of the wiki pages. I think they kind of help. So our episodes were episode 29, Struggle of the Fool, and episode 30, The Ishvalan War of Extermination, which might give you a hint as to why I was saying these are heavy episodes. The summary for episode 29 is, the Elrics are at Bradley's mercy. If the brothers make one wrong move, those dearest to them will pay. As Mustang quietly gathers allies at his side, Ed discovers there may be no need to find a Philosopher's Stone. And I'm glad I read that, because I don't think I wrote that down in my notes. So there you go, listeners. So after the end of last episode, Envy has Ed and Al in his envoy. So Ed and Al are brought up to have a conference with Mustang and King Bradley, who we know is the homunculus Wrath. I was concerned as to why the boys were like, we're in Central Command, that's crazy. When I realized that I'm like, but you guys know that King Bradley's a homunculus. What they meant was, they didn't know that the whole operation with Father and all the homunculi was underneath Central Command. Oh, okay. Makes sense now. By the way, as of right now, May is currently in Al's armor.
Uh-huh.
Ed has to clean up. Ed's taking a shower, and, May is in his armor, and, hilarity ensues. We get a good dick joke, because we need those every once in a while. So, in the meeting, Ed, does this whole thing where he's like, I'm gonna quit being a state alchemist, this is bullshit, I'm not gonna do this anymore, and be your pawn, and King Bradley goes, what was the name of your friend? Oh yeah, Winry. Because remember when King Bradley had a little sit-down with Winry? Well, now there is a liability that, the homunculus can levy against the Elric brothers, so, Bradley is like, oh yeah, Winry, that dear, sweet friend of yours. Mustang decides he's gonna keep with it, because I think Mustang was like, yeah, you're my enemy and all this stuff, and yes, I will take you down. However, I need to stay here to maintain, to achieve my goals. And so Mustang doesn't do the whole showboat. Ed is still a state alchemist, Ed, because obviously, he doesn't want people to die.
Right.
While they're leaving, Wrath decides to stab Al in the armor. Like what happened to Al when he had the chimeras in him, and you're thinking, oh no, May's gonna die, but it's fine. Because during this time, May snuck into Al's leg, so she's okay. Don't worry about it. And so does Xiaomei. Yeah. Mustang asks Wrath if he killed Hughes, and he says, no, I didn't. And then, Mustang is like, well, then who did? And Bradley goes, you had one question. Peace out. Ed and Al shake Mustang down for some money, and they make fun of him for not having any money, and then Mustang is like, got more cash than you, apparently, you broke sinners. They give Winry a call, make sure she's okay. There's a cute little moment, because Winry is like, wow, you're showing me concern, which is a feat for a 15-year-old teenage boy. But, no, she's fine. As they're doing this, Greed walks up to them, and remember, Greed has Ling's body now. And he passes on a message. It's something written in blood on a bandana cloth thing. And they can't read it. It's written in, I'm assuming it's written in, like, kanji. But, Ed and Al can't read it. But, reminder, though, that because Ling wrote this message to give to Lanfan. So Ling is still there. Like, let's keep this in mind. Ed and Al then decide to split up. Ed's going to go, he remembered he has Hawkeye's handgun, so he's going to go return the gun to Hawkeye. Al is going to go to Dr. Knox, because May needs to be treated, needs to be seen to, and also he's going to pass on a message to Lanfan. Then, meanwhile, we jump, there's like 8 plots going on, so there's going to be a lot of jumping around. We jump to, Mustang runs outside, and he's like, where's Hawkeye? I gotta go talk to Hawkeye. Well, Hawkeye's not there. Armstrong is there instead. and Mustang says a line that was like, Armstrong is like, what's wrong? And Mustang is like, nothing. I was expecting to see a beautiful woman, but instead I see you. But as it turns out, Hawkeye was on potty break, so everything is fine, guys. Cut to, Scar is escaping in the air vents, and he passes over Marco's cell, because Marco is being kept somewhere near the homunculi and father. And, Marco's like, who's there? And then blood drops down. He's like, hey, I'm a doctor. I'm pretty good at this healing stuff. I can heal you. Pow. So then Scar's like, okay, jumps down, and then Marco goes, oh, you're an Ishvalan. What justice is this? I killed your people. Isn't that exciting? that will play into next episode, which you might have figured out. Cut to, Greed's hanging out on the rooftop of Central. Wrath pops on up and is like, how you like your new body? And Greed's like, it's pretty great. Guess what? He's a prince. And then Wrath says something like, humans are dumb. And Ling jumps to the forefront of Greed and it was like, how dare you say that? And then he kind of jumps back and Greed's like, oh, this guy's feisty, huh? So Ling is still there, people. Confirmation. Ling has not been totally eaten up by the Sin Monster. Cut to, Mustang, Hawkeye, and Armstrong are all crammed into a car. Mustang catches them up on what's going on, which translates to now Armstrong knows of everything going on. Because up until now, it was basically just Hawkeye and Mustang knew what was going on. So now Armstrong is aware of everything. He's distraught and angry, but he refuses to quit because he fled from, as he says, he fled from the Ishval conflict because of the military's actions during that time. We will learn more next episode. Which I think it's interesting where Armstrong, he's the big, strong guy who will rip off his shirt to inspire you with his muscles, but he's very emotional, which we knew, but I think it's deeper, as in he has this more he has romantic ideals, I think is kind of how to put it. And he just talks about, he has these ideas of protecting. And, he says, I ran away in Ishval because I couldn't believe what I was doing, and I just want to protect the people I'm close to, and now we're in this, and I have to protect my country and all this stuff. Mustang also says a line that is actually quite interesting and characterizing for him, because Mustang says, I only feel human when I'm fighting monsters. He's thinking about killing lust in all this. Cut to, Al has delivered the message to Lanfan, and she's pretty relieved about it. Now she's like, I need automail. Get me some automail. And then May shows up because they're from rival clans in Xing. And they're about to fight. But then Dr. Knox is like, I will end you if you keep fighting. Go to bed for the love of God. So that fight disperses very quickly. Al and Dr. Knox are cleaning up in the kitchen. And we learn that Dr. Knox is estranged from his family. He has a wife and a son. And Al's like, I got a photograph. And Dr. Knox is like, great. And throws it away. And Al is not happy. He's dismayed to learn about this, which I think, if you have to characterize it, I think ties into the difference between Ed and Al regarding their father, for example. Whereas Ed is angry at their dad, and we see a photograph that is a family picture of Ed, Al, and their dad and their mom, and whenever we've seen it, we've always had Hohenheim's face covered up. So I think Al has some sort of like attachment to these things and these memories, whereas Ed's like, I don't care. Yeah. So we see Ed is kind of like Dr. Knox, where he's like, nah, don't care. And Al is like, but it's your family, and that's good, and that's great, and come on, family. Cut to, Ed's on his way to Hawkeye's, and he helps a lady fix her balcony that got ruined, and he learned he can do alchemy again. So, according to some other MPs he ran into, other alchemists couldn't do alchemy either. It wasn't just Ed and Al, it was any alchemist. They were unable to do alchemy when Father shut off the alchemy machine, I guess. But Ed's like, but Scar and May could do their alchemy, so, what's up with that crazy thing going on? After the credits, though, we see Father, like, mutates a gluttony out of his chest, and then, so gluttony's back, and then Marco tells Scar that they were making Philosopher's Stones out of the Ishvalans from the war, and he begs for Scar to kill him. So you know how Dr. Marco originally was telling the boys way back in, like, episode 6, like, don't go after the stone, boys, it's a sinner's stone, and there's no good news about Philosopher's Stones. Well, Marco knows firsthand. And so he's like, please kill me, it would only be just, and Scar's like, no, I want the deets, which rolls into episode 30. Mm-hmm. Episode 30, The Ishvalan War of Extermination. It opens with a younger Mustang, and I actually have to give a note, I think this show does a pretty good job of making characters look younger, even though that, because like in the current day, Mustang I think is like 28 or 29, but the intro of this episode I think he's like 20 or so, and I think they do a really good job of actually showing an age difference, even though the character's an adult, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they really do.
Anyway, that tangent. So Mustang is talking to his alchemy master, who is called Master Hawkeye. Mustang has joined the military with ideals of helping people with his alchemy. He's very young and naive, basically, and Master Hawkeye is mad at him for this. He's coughing a lot, so when he dies, I finally made the connection that he probably died from tuberculosis, because that kind of makes sense in this timeline, historically, timey-wimey-wise. And all he asks, he says he asked for Mustang to look after his daughter and that she contains the secrets to his work. Well, his daughter is Riza Hawkeye, who is the Hawkeye we know, our Hawkeye. And Mustang and Hawkeye are at his grave, and she's noticeably more kind of quiet and withdrawn than we're used to. Like, we know she's pretty quiet, but very, I don't know how to describe it, quiet but fierce and strong, I guess, but this Hawkeye is more timid.
Yeah.
And he lets her know, like, if you need anything, just let me know. And he's like, do you think I'm stupid for joining the military? Like, am I foolish? And she goes, no, I think it's a great idea that you want to protect people and you want to be a foundation for a better vision of our country. And I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Back in the present, Ed is at Hawkeye's apartment to give her gun back. And it obviously needs cleaning because there's lots of blood on it. And Ed catches her up with things, including the situation of what happened with Scar and Winry, and the whole gun thing. Hawkeye tells Ed to hold on to his feelings and use them as his motivation to protect Winry, since he loves her. And she says this, like, straight out, like, well, you love her. Uh-huh. And we'll put a pin in that for ship corner. Let's put a pin in that. And, Ed's like, what? Like a 15-year-old boy does. And basically, with this revelation, we've learned that the only characters who can see there's anything between Ed and Winry are Al and Hawkeye. Like, oh, okay. Like, the perceptive ones are the ones who actually notices anything. Hawkeye apologizes to Ed because she gave him the gun and says it added an undue burden onto him. And he's like, well, do you view guns as a burden? And she says, I've killed too many people, so I can't complain about them being a burden anymore. So Ed then goes, you're talking about Ishval, aren't you? And this is when we get our backstory about Ishval. We've known there's a conflict, a civil war. We eventually learn that Envy was the one who started it. Now we're going to get the whole story. And basically, what we can assume is our major military characters all participated in this war. We see Mustang, Hawkeye, Armstrong, and Hughes as far as like our good guys are concerned. Like we know they were there. So Ishval was a country at one point. It was annexed by a metaseries, which is our country. But the discontent that happened was just discontent until Envy killed a child while disguised as a military figure. The war goes for 7 years until King Bradley signs Executive Order number 3066, which brought in the State Alchemists to try to attempt to bring an end to this conflict. Hawkeye was a sniper during all of this, which is why she's there. She says how most combat in war is blind, but since snipers and State Alchemists face their enemy, death is absolute, and essentially what results from this is a massacre. And obviously it changes our young idealists into not young idealists anymore. During this whole scene that we're seeing, we see a few alchemists that we've seen in the past, like the guys who were like there for an episode and then killed off in like 0.3 seconds. They're all involved in this conflict, including Armstrong, who has no mustache, and he looks very weird without the mustache. But he's a wreck. Like, he is the one, in a previous episode we saw like a wall pop up from the ground and then a bunch of Ishvalans get shot by the soldiers. Well, Armstrong was the one who created that wall. Armstrong can't handle this, as he said in the previous episode. So, which is why I believe he deserted, or he was dishonorably discharged from the conflict, something like that. I believe we'll learn of this more later. But we also get to meet Kimblee, who is going to be a character of importance. I'm just going to ruin that right now. We've only seen Kimblee in prison so far. He's shot up a couple times as his voice actor was also the voice of Trunks in Dragon Ball Z, and so I can only imagine him as evil Trunks every time he speaks. And Mustang and Hughes are there. They were friends in the academy. Now they found each other back on the battlefield, and they're discussing how our whole thing was protecting people, and now this is ruined, and why are we killing citizens? This just doesn't make any sense. And Kimblee overhears this and was like, you're being stupid and naive, and guess what? You're a State Alchemist, so that your job is to be a weapon. You're just doing your job. Kimblee's a psychopath, and he enjoys what he's doing. Okay, guys? I think we're going to learn why he was in jail, because he's a State Alchemist like Mustang is, but obviously Mustang's not in jail, so that is going to come. But it also gives you an idea that Kimblee, his voice, I think, does a really good job of being this sinister asshole.
Yeah, very.
He's another character that I don't like. But they're just doing their job, so you know what? Get used to it, crybabies, is kind of what he says. Back in the present, Marco's also telling Scar about all this, obviously, and he explains that part of the reason for the war was to develop Philosopher's Stones. Ishvalan prisoners of war were brought to the 5th laboratory to make Philosopher's Stones, because remember, Philosopher's Stones were made from people, and that the resulting stone was given to Kimblee. Kimblee, now with the stone, turns the tide of the war, and if you also remember, Kimblee was the one who was responsible for killing Scar's family. He was the alchemist at the top of the building that caused the thing to happen, and all of Scar's family gets killed. In this episode, what ended up happening while this is all going on, is the Grand Cleric of the Ishvalan religion surrenders to King Bradley in exchange for the lives of his countrymen, saying, I'm the head cleric, take my life in exchange for theirs, and Bradley says, one man is just worth one man, he's worth no more and no less, even though you have a position, I don't care. The Ishvalans are angry, and they say God will punish Bradley, and then Bradley is like, God's stupid, basically. God's stupid.
Okay.
Put a pin in this. I want to talk about this. I think it's actually very interesting, but I also want to say, remember that.
Yeah.
And basically, though, after this is, the war is finally drawing to a close. Hughes and Mustang again are just like, this blows and sucks and everything is, we're disillusioned and life is terrible. But Mustang says, Mustang, as we have found, still has the motivation that he hopes I can change the system, and I am going to protect citizens, and if I protect those underneath me, they will protect those underneath them, and, everyone will protect those who are weaker than them, and that's how we're going to build a better country. Mustang is placed in charge of East Area Headquarters, which is where he was at the start of the series, East Command being closest to, Risenbolt, which is why Mustang and Hawkeye were the ones who found the young Sinner boys at an owl after performing the human transmutation. Hawkeye requests to be stationed underneath him. And Mustang says, he's like, all right, cool, you're going to be underneath me, and you're going to be my bodyguard. And by the way, if I stray off the path that I set here, that my determination of what I'm going to do, you kill me. You shoot me. He's like, you keep me on the straight and narrow. Right. If I ever wander off this path, I want you to be the one who kills me for it. So we're back in the present, and Ed brings up, he's like, well, even if Mustang became the Fuhrer, nothing's going to change in this country because we're still a military state, which is when we learn a bit more about the politics and how this country is structured, because we've only seen the military so far. We learned there was a parliament and things like that, but it has been essentially dissolved, and recall that I think Ed was the one who said things took a turn for the militaristic when King Bradley was appointed. So my educated guess is that maybe one of his moves was that he dissolved Parliament when he took over, which would make sense. And Hawkeye says that Mustang intends to make the country more democratic, which in turn would mean seeking to prosecute the soldiers involved in Ishval as war criminals, which would be bad for them, but they recognize that it's something they would have to do to kind of, rectify the mistakes of the past and try and bring some peace to the whole country and, the surrounding areas. Back at Dr. Knox's, Al is going to leave, and May is thanking him, and Al is like, oh, I should introduce myself, I'm Alphonse Elric, and May is like, oh, you're the brother of Ed Elric, and everything got ruined when I met you, because I thought Ed was going to be super cool, and he's super not cool, and Ed is just going, and Al says, I'm nicer, and I'm taller, and I'm hotter, and I'm a gentleman, and so, May has a new Mrs. Elric she can hope to become. So she went from crossing out May Elric in her notebooks back to writing May Elric in her notebooks, essentially. And
crush on Edward Elric ended. Alphonse Elric is new crush.
Then we cut to where Marco was. Envy's bringing him some food, but we see the doctor's dead, mangled body splayed out, and blood is on the wall, and it says vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we end.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a very not fun episode, but again, more background information and stuff for us to learn to keep in mind for the future.
Yeah, a lot going down in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, man, this was a rough episode in flashback.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because a lot of times what you expect to see is, you see the characters who have become war-weary later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to see these characters who are the closeness makes sense if they were fighting together, but, it's interesting to see them as they are now. And then you flash back to when it was bad.
Yeah.
And usually it's the other way around. It's like, oh, these bright-eyed kids, and nowadays they're terrible. Remember when they were happy-go-lucky? And it's like, oh, look at these people, and remember when everything was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was... And I joke about this anime art style, but it's true. I'm not joking about it as a criticism, but it's like when the anime character gets the lines around the eyes.
Yes. Yeah, it's like a very quick sign of weariness and tired and being tired, yeah.
It's really oddly effective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when done I was... quote-unquote not joking about it for kids, when it's like when you see the kids with the lines around the eyes,
mm-hmm.
and you know that they have just been traumatized forever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just they had this thing about, you can see in their eyes that they are killers now, and it's Hawkeye just looks up, and it's like, oh,
yeah.
geez.
And especially because we know Hawkeye being kind of, I guess, brooding in a sense in the present day, but when we see her when she's younger, she's very different personality wise.
Yeah.
But then, Mustang, when he meets Hughes and Hawkeye on the battlefield, he's like, hey, Hughes, you have the eyes of a killer now. And he he meets up with Hawkeye, and he's like, oh no, you have the eyes of a killer too.
And it's just this look that it's like,
yeah,
oh god.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole scene was just so rough in honestly such a good way. That was really well done.
It's very effective. And
yes.
I think what's good about it is, I was actually thinking I misremembered this episode slightly. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be all about in the past, but actually the whole, 22-minute runtime is not spent all in the past. It's not spent all in flashback. But what time it does spend in flashback is used very effectively. And I always think FMA, I think, has excellent pacing, and a lot of people complain about Brotherhood's pacing compared to the 03 series, but I really do think Brotherhood has really good pacing, because you just keep moving. You know, like,
Yeah.
there's not an episode where you're like, I can skip this. Like, you can probably skip Interlude Party, for instance, but you're gonna miss some Hohenheim character developments, but I do feel like they do effectively pace things to just keep moving, and so that, but effectively so, where you remember everything going on, you know what's going on, but you're not sitting there like, I could skip the past, like, I could skip these next 3 minutes, for instance.
Yep.
Which I've also watched some anime, you know, on Hulu, and like, there's times when I've skipped half the episodes, so I was like, I don't need to know what's going on, you know, like, fight, blah, 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 blah. Okay, finally we're back to the plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, sadly I've seen those also.
Yeah, I mean, anime is just like that. Not every anime can be Fullmetal Alchemist, I guess.
Yeah, there are some anime that are just, you know, they come out like that.
Yeah, but, you know, I think it's, like, this is a doozy of an episode, however it tells its story in its runtime, and it just does so very, very effectively, I feel like.
Yeah. I think it was a risky episode in a lot of ways because of just how hard they were going.
I think it's risky. It is. And I also think what's interesting, though, is, like, I think it's smart what they did, which is we've grown to like these characters, you know, like, we really like Mustang and Hawkeye and Armstrong, and we love Hughes, and they're showing us that they all had this brutal past. And I think it's also risky because it's a very nuanced episode which has no answer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's not just this, you know, it is like, you know, war bad. I get that. However, it's also, you know, you have these soldiers who are questioning why are we doing this and what's going on, but not just questioning, like, why? Just in this question, like, but, like, for their citizens, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this here when there's no, but what we know is it's all playing into, we know there's something going on with the evil guys and the homunculus. We just don't know what yet. And I think it's important that we got the Dr. Marco storyline in time with this, because Marco was saying, you know, I led the experiment that showed you how people became Philosopher's Stones, and that's why we did what we were doing, you know?
Yeah.
Which...
I think it was very well timed within the show's run as well. Mm-hmm. If this had been any earlier, it would not have landed.
No, it's actually almost dead center. It's episode 30 of 64, so we're almost, like, dead in the middle of our run right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, almost. We're close. But yeah, I think it was a good episode, and it's also more, you know, just, again, more information and more backstory for our characters. And there's a couple things that outside of the Ishval flashback, you know, we have some things of like, okay, so Mustang trained under Hawkeye's dad.
Yep.
And, you know, Hawkeye's dad said protect her, and also that she has his research, which actually I didn't mention. Before Ed shows up at Hawkeye's apartment, she's taking a shower.
Uh-huh.
And we see her back, and her back has some sort of tattoo carving, and she also has some scarring going on.
She does.
She does.
She's got
so
something going on, yeah.
We're gonna see where that leads to. You know, eventually. I forgot when, but eventually we're gonna learn where that. That's my major theme for this is I forget when this happens, but it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I also want to bring up is in the previous episode, obviously, like we've learned that Ling is still within Greed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting, especially because, you know, when Wrath was talking about becoming homunculus, when Bradley became a homunculus, he was like, I don't even know what soul is in control of me anymore. You know, is it me? Is it the one I was born with? Is it somebody else? Whereas Ling is still in Greed and actually visibly fights to be Greed. And I thank God they used different voice actors for Ling and Greed.
Yeah.
And, like, didn't have the same voice actor for the same character, for, like, the character in the same body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, they're different. Thank God. I can tell them apart. I also do want to touch upon, just like bringing this up, how Bradley in the flashback says, God, you know, humans are foolish and made up God, and God is stupid and lame, and God isn't real. And I'm just like, people need to stop saying there's no such thing as God, because God exists very clearly in this show.
God will come and, like, kick your ass if you keep this up.
God will physically, on a metaphysical plane, come kick your ass.
It's like, no matter what you in the real world listener listening to this believe, in the context of Fullmetal Alchemist, there is very clearly a God. Mm-hmm. So, at least from a fictional standpoint, it's like, please don't.
Yeah.
I mean, go on if you must, but.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to learn that, because what we learn about this is Wrath doesn't think that there is a god. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays, because we every character has a different opinion, obviously. Ed and Al are kind of like wishy-washy, annoyingly so.
For people who have, again, we've talked about this, they've seen God, and they're still going,
Not only have they seen God, they also acknowledge stuff like human creation is God's domain. Like, they say these things out loud.
Yeah.
And so, as much as they believe in their alchemy science magic, they're also just sort of like, well, we can't do everything with science, that there is still God somewhere in this equation. But, I mean, also, in particular, I do want to know that the Ishvalans are very religious people, and they're always, and they're consistently portrayed that way. And even Scar, who is going out and killing people, which is not a tenet that religions are known for,
yeah.
He's still saying stuff like, when he does his killing, he's saying how people are a disgrace to God. So even Scar believes in God. And and so, having the Ishvalan say, like, you will be struck down by the hammer of God, it annoys Wrath, because Wrath is like, well, just do it yourself. Like, stop relying upon God to do it yourself. Which, personally, I feel I do strongly feel is a misunderstanding of religion that a lot of people have. I'm just gonna say it. And I've maybe brought up in the podcasts, I've watched some videos about the philosophy of FMA.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of these people don't understand how religion is handled in FMA. Like, fine, I'll say it. I'll say the video people are wrong. Because, what it is really, though, to me, is it is a misunderstanding people have about religion and about how religious people think and operate.
Yeah.
Like, there is... I think what's very interesting about this series is that there's a lot of philosophy in FMA, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of theory you can drive from, there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of discussions you can have from it, but I do feel like the religion aspect is understood by some people. Like, I get it, and you get it, but I also think it's misunderstood by other people, and that's because of who you are in the audience. And that's just my opinion, and I'm free to say that. You may have noticed, my Life on Mars discussions, I'll bring up how very Catholic of things are, so that might give you a hint as to my religion, but...
Gasp.
It's not, like, I think there is a lot of, I remember reading recently about how a lot of series kind of pay lip service to Christianity in particular, because it has iconography, and it has built-in meanings, and it's very easy to just use, but I actually think Fullmetal Alchemist utilizes them into a deeper level than other anime series do.
Yeah.
Because it is so integral to other things in the plot.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my God rant over.
I think when you're talking about a show like Fullmetal Alchemist, God rants are a thing because God's a character.
Yeah, and I just want to bring that up, though, because I was like, you stupid assholes in your whole thing of, like, why do you agree with Wrath? Wrath is wrong. I'm just gonna tell you, Wrath is wrong, you dumb shit, and you're agreeing with him. Like, and you're like, well, Ed and Al say. I'm like, well, Ed and Al are also stupid teenagers. Anyway, okay. Well, with that seriousness out of the way, can I talk about Ship Corner?
Let's go to the Ship Corner.
Let's go to Ship Corner. I have a lot to say that I texted you about at 12:30 in the morning one time.
I really wish I had a little... Future Kara, go into the royalty-free music and find us a Ship Corner theme. I am going to expect you to paste that theme right here. Good job, Future Kara. That was excellent.
That was awesome, Future Kara.
That was awesome. I am just so good.
You're so talented, senpai.
Yay! Anyway, please go ahead.
So, Ship Corner, Life on Mars. The reason I want to bring this up here. Okay, this is my furious texting. So I texted Kara at 12:30 in the morning when I couldn't fall asleep, and I went, "This show is bullshit, and I hate it." And I think you were mad at me for 3 seconds.
I wasn't mad. I was scared. I was like, oh.
like, listen.
I was like, oh no, she hates it. Oh no, what do I do?
Oh yeah, I definitely haven't told you I hate it after watching 15 episodes.
Look,
15 hours of my life.
Look, I watched Mad Men for a long time, so. Anyway,
I watched Legend of Korra. I understand. Man,
oh my god,
I'm gonna be
here. Oh god, I can't wait to edit this episode.
So
snip, 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 snip.
Hey, my opinions are valid. So here's my thing. I said to you, I was trying to fall asleep, and I was thinking about life on Mars, and we were joking about Sam getting cock-blocked once again, and it was very clearly going to happen in the hallway. Sam and Annie, I'm like, there is something going to happen here, and then what's his face shows up, and everything's ruined, and I hate everything, and I hate this show. Well, however, I had a revelation. I had an idea. And the thing about a series like Life on Mars is everything I feel is deliberate. Because there's not a lot of episodes, you don't have a lot of time, you have to tell your story, and especially in a season context, there's only 8 episodes, so you have to get your story out there, and you have to be smart with your time. They deliberately spent an episode with Maya, and Sam letting go of Maya, Maya letting go of Sam. Like, that deliberately happened just recently. And we also see, though, that we have had several occasions where Sam and Annie were going to kiss, and some form of cock-block happened. You know, Sam had a migraine. Sam had a weird future thing. Somebody interrupted several times. Like, this always happens. However, I finally got to thinking, wait a minute. And this actually ties into my whole Catholic purgatory theory. I'm just gonna keep going that theme. Which is, Sam knows he's in a coma, and in my mind, Sam could be doing something else. Sam could be on this sort of journey. Sam could be, in this sort of, no, scratch that. Sam's on a journey. That's all I'm going to say. And I was thinking, what if Annie represents giving into this fantasy? Because although Sam has stoked friendships with these characters, and maybe outside of the show they're doing fun adventures and going to theme parks, but Sam still feels isolated as a character. He still feels like he's on his own. He'll go to the bar with them, but, doesn't really seem super friendly, but he really likes Annie. He loves Annie. He's clearly attracted to her, and he, just wants to be with her, basically. However, I get this feeling that if Sam and Annie do kiss, it'll be this bridge that Sam crosses, and once he crosses that bridge, there's no going back. So I feel like a romance with Annie is Sam fully giving into whatever he's in right now. Whether he succumbs to the coma and dies, for instance, whether he, perhaps, if my purgatory theory is anything to go by, maybe it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be that it's the end of Sam's journey, and Sam, let's say, gets into heaven, for instance, or that kind of a thing, where it concludes the journey Sam is on by accepting that this is his life now, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that was my whole thing, so even though I'm frustrated as hell, I finally was like, wait a minute, this has to mean something. I feel like there's something more here, and Annie could represent something, if it was just as simple as Annie represents his acceptance of his death. Let's just say that. And as we know, death is not necessarily a bad thing. It happens to all of us eventually. And, in the context of Christianity, and just because I'm going to say that as the religion I'm familiar with, heaven is a good place. Heaven is and at the end, heaven is our goal, So I think it's an interesting thing where that could be the case. And that's just why it hasn't happened yet. And I also realized this in episode 7 of 8, and 8's our final one with Sam. What I also think is interesting about this is, again, my reiteration that I know that Life on Mars takes place in 1973 and Ashes to Ashes takes place in the 80s. So there is, for some reason, a 7 to 8 to 9 year time gap between the two series, but the actors don't age. And I understand that you can kind of do whatever actors are actors, but I feel like because things are deliberate, this does play into something. Because if we're saying that the precinct is a purgatory, for example, then Alex's place there, they can happen with these characters who are the same but different in whatever way. And also, because you have said to me, Alex is different than Sam, and my idea is that, well, maybe Alex knows she's dead, whereas Sam doesn't realize he's dead. Sam knows he's in a coma, but coma doesn't mean dead. And so that's kind of that's my theory. I know it's all you can say. I feel very proud of this. I feel very proud of this theory, though.
I am putting in the obligatory
And that's kind of how I have to say about Shipping Corner, was I can't really say anything, we can't, like, you can't discuss my theory, except tell me that it's at least somewhat thought out.
You have not brought in anything that does not exist within the show.
That's just it. I'm not relying on anything else, you know, like, I'm not relying on anything. I'm relying on what I have gathered in the show, and also, you don't have to be Christian to be like, this represents death. You know, like, that's just a very obvious literary theme, for example, so it could, I feel like there's a very strong possibility that that's kind of, that what I am thinking of is possibly true, and does not rely upon things being too crazy abstract. Also, again, in my eternal defense, Sam wears a St. Christopher medallion, which again is an interesting detail. I cannot recall other characters I have seen on television wearing saints medallions, okay? I'm just gonna say that. I've only met people in real life who wear them, you know, myself included. You know,
and,
so it's like...
myself, yeah.
And you, like... So again, and when a person wears one, I think it's interesting detail, because it's a, you know, like, okay, what's your medallion? It's kind of like Pokemon cards. What's yours? What does yours mean? And all that kind of stuff. Like, for instance, I have two, and I'm totally blanking on one, and I definitely apologize, because I have some clients that are private schools with the same names, and I definitely get them confused. But for one, I have a medallion for St. Catherine of Bologna, who is the patron saint of artists. She's my confirmation saint. You might know why I picked that one. I also have a medallion for the patron saint of cancer for my dad, and so you know, like, but we have those for those reasons, like, they mean something to us,
right? And
so with Saint Christopher being the patron saint of travelers, I find it an interesting detail that Sam has it. That's all I'm saying. Again, for like the 10th time.
I don't feel right saying anything about Shipping Corner for, I mean, we can touch on it a little bit for Fullmetal Alchemist. That's...
I mean, like, I'll bring up, like, we got more confirmation with Ed and Winry. If you think there's going to be another ship with Ed and Winry, you're wrong. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty dang obvious. I just love how casual Hawkeye is about it. Mm-hmm.
Well, she's like, duh. Of course.
She's not saying it stealthily, like, oh, I have figured out something that this young boy has not. She's like, well, you know, y'all are a thing. Y'all love each other.
Right.
You love her. Like,
I mean, I will say that we got more Mustang and Hawkeye shipping.
Yes.
in just in the first episode, in 29, where he goes to the car and he even says, "I was expecting a beautiful woman here.
Yeah.
Not you, Armstrong." I might not be quoting verbatim, but he definitely says the adjective beautiful, so I'm just saying.
Yes.
And also, I do think it's important that we learn in the past stuff like Mustang was the student of her dad, and then her dad's dying wish was for him to look after her, and we learn that he appointed her to be under his command in East, and to keep him on the straight and narrow. Like, there's a lot to go on.
It's like, state alchemists don't say I love you. They say, if I go off the straight and narrow, I want you to be the one who shoots me. And I think that's beautiful.
Yes. And then I think we get the start of, like, Al and May. Just because I think it's so funny that Al is so insulted that he's like... that May is like, oh, so you're like your stupid, ugly brother. And he's like, no, I'm a gentleman.
How dare you? I am a sweet treat. I am a snack. And if it weren't for this whole being a disembodied spirit in armor thing, you would know that.
Oh, God. Alice is a snack. You heard it here first, folks. But this is so... I love it because... what I love about this is we know Al as this, like, cute, caring character. He's very nice and polite. But I do love that he has more of a personality to him.
He's so offended.
He has a rivalry with Ed because they're brothers and all, so one of his things is he's like, I'm taller than him, and I'm nicer than him, and I'm more handsome than he is. So don't you dare think I'm like my stupid, ugly brother. And May instantly falls in love with him.
And she
it's
just
the
instantly
thing all over again.
She instantly believes him too. Then again, the bar is pretty low. Nicer, taller, and more handsome than Edward Elric. That's a bar I can hop to. So.
Nicer and taller for sure. The fangirls will debate about the more handsome part, but nicer and taller for sure. That's a fact.
May is a gift. She's wonderful. I loved when she walked into Lanfon's room, and there's just like this. We've had these very dramatic moments, and it's like, so.
Oh yeah.
It's like, wait, what? What the? Oh God.
Yeah, they're fighting. And their whole thing was like, they were like, Al's going, why are you fighting? Stop. And they yell at him and like, don't interfere with the affairs of our country. And then Dr. Knox shows up and he's like, stop. And they go, don't interfere. And he's like, shut the fuck up. I don't care. You're my patients.
Please get back in bed. You have one arm.
Yeah.
You have one whole ass arm. Lie the hell down. They're just both so. She's gonna kick the shit out of a kid. I love that. Like
she's gonna kick the shit out of like a 14-year-old, and she only without the use of one of her arms.
She's literally like, she's a kid. She's a kid. It's like, I am going to kick the ass of this child and this panda, and It's funny because when we first met Lanfon, she was not quite so, I mean, she's been through a lot, let's be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, when someone insulted Ling, she's like, oh my goodness, how dare you! And, yes. And now she'll just, now she's gone full murder hobo, and I kind of love it. You know, all it took for me to like Ling was taking him away. Which is true of a lot of characters. I'm like, oh, God, I can't believe this guy. And he's gone, hey!
I think it's funny because I think, like, I liked Ling, and then but I know you were very suspicious of him. I didn't want to say anything. I was like, well, I don't want to, like, ruin the moment here.
Okay, I didn't hate him as a character. It was kind of, it's like, you suspicious son of a bitch, but you are fun. It's like,
yeah. Right.
Zelos and Slayers sort of thing.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you got suspicious anime boy face.
Right.
I don't know what you want me to think of you.
I know. Yeah, I didn't want to like take away from that because I knew it was that
right.
whole thing.
Right.
I also think Greed, like Ling has the closed eyes thing going on, and he's opened his eyes for character moments, but then I think Greed's eyes are open.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those easy ways to tell them apart kind of a thing. Now that they're both occupying the same body.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I really like that they went that direction with the new Greed. I mean, you're not going to spend all that time on Ling and give him a love interest and have him do all this stuff and then just like, goodbye.
And he's gone. Peace out. Yeah.
We're going to have his body still running around, and we've spent all this time. And again, the show, I've noticed, does this very nice thing where before it integrates something into the plot, it teases you with it on a low level.
Mm.
Like, before they introduced, you know, by showing you, hey, here's a different way it's done, you already know the potential circumstances, how it's done badly, or how it's happened before. So, before introducing all the Chimera, they do the whole Shao Tucker thing. Before they introduce Greed in Ling's body, they introduce Wrath talking about the uncertainty of whose soul currently is in him. So it's something that I've noticed, and I'm going to say that's on Arakawa because if this is a fairly close adaptation of the manga, that's her doing.
Yeah, it's definitely an Arakawa thing, which again is why I think FMA is a good series, not just because for the story and plot, but I'm like, it is so tightly written and well written.
It is so tightly written that it's like the thing is, from now on, and I think this is a wonderful thing. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is sort of I love that I have this radar now, that whenever I hear a new, for lack of a better term, game mechanic, You know, whenever I hear a new thing like that introduced, and I hear someone talk about their experience with it a bit, and then it just goes away, my mentality is, that will come up later.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's sort of that thing in dating sims where it's like, Kara will remember this. You know? It's like, oh, you're talking about such and such experience. Well, that's going to figure in about 5 episodes, so I'm going to remember that. And it's nicely paced.
Yeah.
And as speaking from a writer's point of view, and from someone who does like to do foreshadowing and long game and all this other stuff, that is one of the more difficult things to land. It is, from someone who sits there with, like, diagrams of where to put things and when to introduce characters and when to introduce plot points and this and that and the other and what's a red herring and what's not, seeing it done relatively effortlessly here.
Right.
But and also while noting that it absolutely is not effortless. She clearly, the fact that it just slides right in and I now have the pattern and I now know I gotta listen to these little new things, that means she worked real hard.
Yeah.
So I am, as ever, very impressed by the writing on this.
Cool.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
All right, with our super double wide episode already going long, let's wrap this up with our favorite sin and favorite violence.
Let's see. So, there were some interesting violences. I don't know, I think Gene just, like, losing his mind at the beginning when he was super drunk. I don't know if that's the best. It is A1.
It was funny.
It was funny. And then he like blacked out. So he doesn't even remember doing it. So that's a shame.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, you were a mess, my dude, but
it wasn't violent. However, one of my favorite things was the Sam and Gene have to run away from Chris and Ray. And my first comment to you was, they're all running, and I go, who is going to have a problem first? Like, who is going to? Because everyone is out of shape. Let's admit, everyone on this show is out of shape. But I was like, it should be Gene or Ray who has a problem first. No, it's Chris. Chris, like, the show read my mind, and Chris goes, oh, I have a stitch. And Ray is like, what is your fucking problem?
It's Kohai. It's always Kohai. Ah, bless. So, I mean, that was kind of an action scene, and it was trying to... It was in reference to a potential murder case, so I'll file it. Counts to me. The sin. Oh my god. The war. The whole war.
Yeah, the
war, and then that whole flashback is the big sin of the week, of the day, of the month, of the year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, just the whole flashback. And that whole, ha 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 ha, it's my fault, everyone's dead.
Right.
It's like,
I'm not quite sure if, I guess because Dr. Marco discovered that he can make humans into Philosopher's Stone, so I guess it is all his fault.
Well, I mean, at least he got his wish at the end.
Yeah.
They both got what they needed. I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, well... I think that wraps it up, so...
That does wrap it up.
Yeah! So, I am Kara.
And I'm Ginger.
And that was the Sin and Violence Podcast.
A podcast of equivalent exchange.
Whew! And I get to edit that so much.